Time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. And joining me in the studio is analyst Obani Akinwale. Ni, it's nice to see you.
Good morning, nice to
Great.
meet you.
Okay, Daily Times is where we start from this morning. Daily Times says global standard instructions cause stir in banking sector. As the Daily Times says, global standard instructions cause stir in banking sector. All right, from the Daily Times, let's go to Blueprint newspaper. PDP, APC, Becker as tension looms over Edo Guba. All right, and PDP South governors planning to use ex-militants, as the APC is saying this. Your target is to assassinate Obaseki. PDP tells opposition, don't bring an ex-militant. Edo Group begs stakeholders. All right. Rather bring in ex-militants, rather. That's a Blueprint newspaper, talking politics there. And away from there, News Direct is next. News Direct says CRR, LDR, CBN commercial banks in Cold War. The policy squeezing liquidity from us. That's the source is saying that. The source is revealing this. And over 2 trillion naira taken from commercial banks. Top bank officials are revealing this. Okay, we'll wait to see how these things go. Business AM is next now. Business AM says Naira held hostage by local foreign interests, says operators. Okay, Naira held hostage by local and foreign interests. Okay. All right, from there, let's go to Daily Trust. Daily Trust says as COVID-19 delays Dangote refinery, oil import takes toll on earnings. Nigeria's revenue drops by 40%. As the vice president is saying this, and Lagos-Ibadan rail projects also affected. Okay, all impact on the oil there, and certainly on the front page of the Daily Trust, you see the progress on the Dangote refinery around Ibejuleki in Lagos. All right, from the Daily Trust, let's go to Leadership newspaper. A Leadership newspaper is talking electricity. Nigeria requires 9 trillion naira to achieve 20,000 megawatts. Nigeria requires 9 trillion naira to achieve 20,000 megawatts. Experts seek unbundling of the TCN. Azura Power Plant project precedes PMB's administration. That's the presidency saying this. It says Oshibajo Fashola didn't sign agreement. Okay, Nigeria requires 9 trillion naira. Wow, that's huge. Okay, from the Leadership newspaper, let's go to the National Economy, which is the last paper we're looking at now. Aggressive diversification recommended to boost revenue as 26 states IGR unimpressive. All right, 7 states IGR in 2019, far below 10% of FAA receipts. Lagos, Ogun, Rivers lead pack. Kwara, Kaduna, Kano's IGR above 20% FAA receipts. Okay, I guess this is a topic that will interest my guest and also Nigerians this morning, talking about diversification. So aggressive diversification recommended to boost revenue as 26 states IGR unimpressive. Okay, the annual States Viability Index report shows that about 7 states are insolvent, because the point there is, according to the report, their revenues for 2019 were far below 10% of what they get from federal allocation. Now, we've been talking about this issue of diversification for a long time. I wonder what you feel is responsible for the inability or the obstacles that are before states to take this thing headlong.
Yeah, good morning once again. I'll go back to my usual balance that you are looking at the man with the hunchback, and you said the man at the top is not straight. And the man is telling you that you are looking at me at the top, you are not looking at the down, that at my behind, I'm carrying something that will never make me to look straight. And what is that something that will never make Nigeria look straight is what we call the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because as a federated unit, we are not diversified, we are unified by the federal government. So if you have an economy whereby the lead is always taken by federal government, the chunk is taken by federal government, you could imagine FRS coming up a few days ago and says, if I rent a house in Lagos at 1.2 million, I'm expected to pay 6%. Now, if federal government is one making policies for states that are viable or states that are not viable, I wonder what will be the standard of living, what will be human development index, and what will be the foreign direct investment in those states. Look at the states that were read in the newspaper. They were industrial states. Look at states like Lagos State, like Kano, like River, like Kano, like Kaduna. You have textile mills and what have you. And these states were not as a result of what federal government is doing. It's as a result of what has been in practice during the period of regionalization, whereby you have the Southwest, the Southeast, the Middle Belt, and the North, and what have you. So everybody were developing their zone, and they were remitting back to the federal government. But unfortunately, now what you have is that everybody is now generating for federal government to remit back to them. You could imagine a gold is being mined in Osun State, is being mined in Zamfara, and they have to take everything to Abuja, and Abuja will determine what comes back to them. You could imagine the number of tax that is coming from Lagos. Everything has to go back to, the VAT comes to Lagos, yes, but every other part of the tax goes to Abuja. Abuja now look at what to give back. So naturally, you are making some states lazy. Naturally, you are taking from Paul to pay Peter. Now, the only way the economy will diversify is that if we treat the faulty foundation of our constitution that puts virtually everything reasonable and a source of generating income as exclusively for the federal government. And the moment we still have the federal government taking over 50% chunk of the entire federation generation, we have problems.
Yeah, but the argument that some have put forth is that there are states with various comparative advantage. Agriculture, for instance, that almost every state in Nigeria has an aspect of agriculture that they can, leverage on, either from crop farming to livestock farming and all of that. Agriculture is on the concurrent list where the federal government doesn't have exclusive jurisdiction over it. So how about that area? So
you asked again that who spearheads the agricultural program? The anchor borrowers scheme, is it supposed to come from the federal government or from the state government or local government? You ask another question, you look at it that, okay, who coordinates what they call Fadama Rice Project in Nigeria? Is it the federal government, the state, or the local? So when you look at all these policies, the policies are supposed to be local. Now, what is obtainable?
But isn't it because the states are not pulling their weight? Because in all of that, the federal government has a federal ministry of agriculture. It will certainly do whatever it can do.
That is trying to test 3 million farmers for COVID.
Yeah, but how about the states? What would they be doing?
Exactly what I'm trying to say. There are certain responsibilities that are supposed to gravitate naturally to the states. Is it working before we people of Nigeria begin to adopt the 1999 constitution of the military, the PRC? The question is, if we go back, look at Kano, the Grand Pyramid, there was nothing called federal government. Yeah. The Cocoa House in Ibadan, there was not the Sam member of the Southeast. There was nothing called we are waiting for federal allocation to come. So there is ingenuity to do it. But you can imagine, I have a land square of about, let's say Lagos, 18,000 square kilometers, and you have building of about, let's say 200 million buildings. And federal government is generating, let's say, 1 million naira, out of which federal government will take 70% to Zamfara, where there's nothing generated. So there is nobody that wants to work. National Nigeria government is okay. Since there is something called federal allocation, there is a national key that all of us can put into. So what you find out is that all of these taxes, all of these books that we are checking is mostly in the urban areas and mostly in the southern part of the country. So the moment federal government begins to take 20% of our allocation and tell that each state, whatever you generate, pay us royalty, you will see that all the states will go out. But federal government has created a whether you work or you don't work, whether you generate value or you don't generate value, if your entire revenue is okay, at the 26th of every month, you have a minute of all the commissioners of finance where you deliberate. When you are around Rambo, you go to the Nigeria Governors Forum, talk to the vice president of the country, and they will say, okay, you need bailout. Federal government will give you bailout. It's only in this economy that you give bailout to governments, not to individuals. You could look at what is happening in NDDC. Somebody sat there and he said, because of the kind of system we run, if the job man himself that is the one putting up the oil is the one paying government what is due to the government, the development will be localized. The generation will be localized. Employment, see, when you generate employment at the local level, the way it oil the engine of economy is astronomical. But situation whereby every job comes from federal government, 774 local government, 1,000 job per. Who does that? In a standard economy, allow local government to handle all these things. for example, you got something, local government joint state account. What it means is that local government cannot tie their road, run to your state governor and said, we don't have money, help us run this area. If they don't do it, you blackmail them. How do federal government determines, look at, for example, Lagos, Third Milan Bridge is closed down for 6 months, yet we lock down the country for almost 3 months. So how do you justify all those policy somersaults from the top?
So the biggest bane now is unbundling the
Constitution is a mess. The Constitution is a mess.
Okay.
If the Constitution is not treated properly, state government will still continue to go hand in cap to the federal government. And when the insolvency come, federal government will still turn themselves to Father Christmas and dollar bailout to state government. Okay,
well, Obadi, the point there is Nigerians are waiting to see what can change. And
we can change it. We can change it because we said APC change. Now APC is next level. The next level we're expecting is that let us break down the constitution to constituents. Let it serve the people that it's meant to serve for.
This is even far beyond APC as a political party.
But they can do it. They have the highest number in the parliament. They have the executive, so they can do it.
Let's leave it here now before we take it to another direct dimension.
PDP South Governor planning to use ex-militants, APC. Your target is to assassinate Obaseki, PDP tells opposition. Done bringing ex-militants, Edo Group back stakeholders. And now we move to the front page of the News Direct. CRR, LDR, CBN, commercial banks in cold war. The policy is squeezing liquidity from us. Source. Now over 2 trillion naira taking from commercial banks, top bank official. To the front page of the Business AM now. Naira held hostage by local foreign interests, say operators. And on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, as COVID-19 delays Dangote refinery, oil import takes toll on earnings. Nigeria's revenue drops by 40%. Vice President, Lagos Ibadan rail project also affected. All right, let's quickly move to the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Now, electricity. Nigeria requires 9 trillion naira to achieve 20,000 megawatts. Experts seek unbundling of TCN. Azura Power Plant project precedes President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Presidency says Oshibajo Fashola didn't sign agreement. I'm certain my guests will be interested in talking about this. And finally, on the front page of the national economy, aggressive diversification recommended to boost revenue. As 26 states IGR unimpressive, 7 states IGR in 2019 far below 10% of FFA receipts. Lagos, Ogun, Rivers, Lead Park, Kwara, Kaduna, Kanu's IGR above 20% FAA receipts there. All right, let's head straight to the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Abani talking about Nigeria requiring 9 trillion naira to achieve 20,000 megawatts. This has always been projected by the government, talking about targeting 20,000 megawatts over time. And now it is saying that we need 9 trillion naira. And you would recall, I'm certain you have been following the number of investments the government has been making towards ensuring that we have stable electricity. Because if you are looking at diversifying the economy, whatever it is, electricity is a key driver.
Yeah, I think our country is like the more you look, the less you see.
Really?
If you remember in 2007 or thereabouts, there was a panel led by Honorable Ndidi Elumelu to probe into 16 trillion invested in the power sector. Up till today, that panel report has not seen the daylight. You also remember that the same Nigerian government, one of the airlines today says, we have exported $86.4 billion worth of dollars of electricity to our neighboring African countries. So you ask yourself, if we're able to export in credit $84.something billion in terms of electricity to our neighboring countries, Nigeria Republic, Cameroon, even Ghana, and you have about 8 IPP that they said they cannot generate power, 1, due to the fact that there is a shortage of gas, 2, due to the fact that the discos are rejecting load. Now, we are now going to another race to create a ponderous kind of settings for some people. Because I wonder why we want to invest 9 trillion naira in power generation when we recently just signed a contract with Siemens to help us improve on our distribution network. So you see this country is just riddled in a lot of mysteries. And our leaders find out that one week, one trouble. Once they throw this up and there is no uproar, but nobody's protesting, they go down. Then, unfortunately for us in this country, after President Goodluck Jonathan tenure, civil society ceased
Are
to
you
exist.
saying, if I may interrupt you for a bit,
Right.
Are you saying that we do not need any more investments, monetary investments, with regards to our electricity sector because of the monies we have injected so far?
So, quoting the word of the former ULC president, Comrade Ajero, he said, you are a owner of a house, you sold your property house to another person. And the person you sold your house to come back to you and said, the house I bought from you, the roof is leaking, borrow me money to roof it. You said, okay, I'll roof it for you. The federal government has made us to understand that we have sold discos and some power generating stations to individuals, to corporate organizations to run. And the government is saying that the business of government is to create an enabling environment, not to even do the business themselves. So if the government is still saying that after spending 16 trillion during the Obasanjo regime and there is no hope, after Jonathan has privatized the discos and some gencos and we don't have any results, then we are going this route again of investing 9 trillion on a futile journey. First of all, let us first be able to evacuate the total amount of power we are generating. Let us bridge that gap between distribution and transmission. What generation? What are we generating? Who is using what we are generating? The power stations are shutting down every day because the discos are rejecting the load because they say the costs are not reflective. Now, you are going to route of generating 20,000 megawatts when you have a transmission line that has capacity to carry only 7,000 megawatts. It's only in this country we always put the cart before the horse, not the horse before the cart. So what you find out is that in our own situation, our own power sector, it's always the cart that is driving the horse. And in Senate climes, it's always the horse that's supposed to drive the cart. Now, if you are investing 20 trillion, what happened to the initial 16 trillion that was invested? What happened to the capacity that was signed with Siemens to incrementally increase our capacity to improve on the power distribution? What happens to the disco that you have sold? How have they been able to perform their responsibility in providing people with sufficient electricity, industrial area? Do they have the capacity to supply the area they are mad for? Is their business not subjected to review to ensure that there is efficiency in the system? Yet again, we banded 9 trillion naira on the newspaper. Meanwhile, the total budget of the country as a whole is 10-point-something trillion. Now we are saying that 90% of our budget is what is required to hold the power sector. Yes, if you get the power sector right, we know that the economy will be right. But the way we invest in something that in some futility in this country amazes a lot of us. And I think it is high time our leaders are sincere with themselves, because they are selling our tomorrow and people are keeping quiet. The societies are not talking. Labor unions seems not to exist. I think this is a journey in futility, and I advise whoever is advising the government at this point in time not to embark on this dooms business. We can't invest 9 trillion in a system whereby you cannot distribute effectively, you cannot transmit effectively.
But they're also looking at perhaps unbundling the TCN, which is also part of the report. People are saying that perhaps we should also look at the TCN, unbundling it, that might improve the services
so
delivered.
when we unbundle NNPC to have crude oil exports, offshore, onshore, when Mele Kyari came back to tell us last week that we are running at a 500 million deficit. When they unbundle what used to be PHCN to become IKDC, KEDC, KEDC, was it profitable? Do we have the results? So is unbundling our problem or the system itself? So when you say you want to unbundle, we have unbundled PHCN to create many discos. We have sold power stations to individuals to generate power. Have we solved the problem of power generation in this country? Have we solved the problem of distribution? Well, you have even streamed it down, for example, Ikeja take Lagos, they go take part of Lagos, or Ibadan take Oshogbo, and what have you. Now, you have a situation whereby there seems to be non-existence of light in areas where there is no meter or when they are not industrial. So, you now ask, is unbundling our problem? Unbundling is not our problem. It's the system itself. The system is contrived in such a way that the entire system will fail. The system will continue to fail. How do you?
And is that deliberate?
Let me shock you.
Is it deliberate?
It is deliberate because some power, okay, for example, Omotosho in Ogun State here, they have a power station. They have an agreement with the federal government that this amount of power you must buy from us before they invest into that business. Now, in the case of PID that we have, that they signed a contract and they are now saying, no, we don't want to do this. It's likely to happen with those power generation stations because they are generating power, government is not absorbing it. So government is going to be paying for what we are not using, what the discos will not buy. And when they generate those power, disco will reject them because they don't have buyers that will buy at reflective rate. Then again, government is now going to go back to all those power stations, the power stations, to say, oh, we are sorry, we cannot consume what you have here, take this, take that. And that's why we said, let us go in the real sense of privatization. Why is Aramco in Saudi Arabia profitable? Why are they declaring profit every year? Why is British Petroleum declaring profit every year? Why is only Nigerian corporations are always not generating money? Why is it only Nigeria and Nigerian corporations, government will put in money and they will go and write it off again and say, oh, National Industrial Deposit Commission borrow their money, AMCOM go and take over. After AMCOM take over, they sold it again at a ridiculous price. Another person buys it again, government goes in again to subsidize. So it's until we get the system right. Government has to be sincere in selling this product to those people that are ready to do the business and allow the business itself to regulate itself. The moment you find out that who are those people, you borrow money from Sky or Polaris Bank, go and invest in Heritage, leave that one, go and invest in another product. And at the end of the day, government buy the debt over, and the person that borrowed the money is living large. And that's exactly what's happening in the power sector in this country. Government should be sincere and allow the business to run itself. And investing 9 trillion is not a problem at this moment. The problem is that we need to purge ourselves out of the corruption that is endemic in our system. You could imagine if they go the route of NDDC in the power sector, what we are seeing in NDDC is minor.
Really?
Yeah, because you imagine, can generation company tell us how much they are generating per day? Can they tell us how much is being rejected by the disco? Can the transmission company tell us how much are they giving each discos? So these are questions that we need to answer, and the government just needs to stop this wastage every time. 9 trillion is too much after we have invested 16 trillion just about 10 years ago. I think it is high time government look to themselves in the eyes and stop this journey of futility. All
right, Obani Akinwale, thank you so much for your time on the newspaper review this morning.